Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I give you a wider and deeper understanding of the world of design, where I look into the world of architecture, game design, products, graphics, everything. And I also look into theory, philosophy, and lifestyle in relation to the design world. But today, I'm doing a somewhat different video than what I've been doing so far. This video is coming somewhat of an emotional reaction to a recent game experience that has just triggered a train of thought. Not necessarily that I came up with it in this particular moment, but it kind of has catalyzed the argument. I think we are at a point where it would be good to share, just walk through, because I do think it is, as the title of the video says, it is a reflection of the unfortunate state of design that we're in. I'm going to do the best I can to tie all of my thoughts together. If not sequentially, then hopefully I am able to paint a clear picture at the end. I'm going to start by exposing the problem from a particular experience, how it expands into the greater design scene. Then I'm going to talk about the possible solutions, not the solution, just a potential solution to this problem. So let's just dive into it. So recently, I am trying to finish Assassin's Creed's Valhalla. So putting aside all the other controversies that are happening right now with Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed, I'm playing it, and I'm at the point where I am at the end of the game. And I am trying to figure out how much time I need to put into the game, right? How far into the game I need to keep going to finish the game. So I have a timeline as to like, hey, am I going to be able to play the game, this other game that I want to play when it's released, because it's a game that I'm looking forward to. Assassin's Creed, so for those of you who are not familiarized with, it's a very big franchise. I think the first game goes back to, like, I don't know if it's 2007 or 2008, something like that. And the games break, each game has its own world, its own twist, but each game gives you a piece of a greater story that you kind of have to play all the games to get a bit of that greater story. Once I kind of confirmed that I was done with the game, at least the main storyline, I didn't feel like the game was done. And this is because when you are done with the main story, you have like other 6 possible storylines that you can keep playing to finish. Now, this could be very appealing to a certain type of gamer profile. Of course, there's like MMORPGs, right? It's like the never-ending worlds that offer you content so you can keep being in the world. Now, even though the game is supposed to be finished, I played it until the point that I wanted to. I feel like I'm trapped now. And I say this because a game is like the game design, the structure of a game design is supposed to have, basic characteristics. You have to have a clear goal. You have to have a clear feedback cycle. You have to have a understanding of the world as a player to be able to interact with it successfully. And also one of the things is completion, right? And it goes like as a sub point of the goal. Like once I achieve something, it's done. It's a contained experience that makes it different from real life. Here with Assassin's Creed's Valhalla, I feel trapped. I feel like I have not finished the game, even though I did finish it to the point that I wanted to. But the idea is that they're willing to dilute the concept or the tenet of what makes a good game design, which is a clear goal. They're willing to dilute that to be able to keep me, let's say, entrapped in the Assassin's Creed world. Now, this makes sense, right? At least from their perspective, they want to keep me within the franchise, consuming the franchise, not looking at other games until they are able to develop the next one, which usually takes 2 to 3 years. So I understand that they're putting out content and they're trying to create a transition between, hey, you finish the main story, you have all these other possible side quests or stories that you can keep playing while you wait for our other game. I have no problem with that. I've enjoyed that in other games. But the way that they're doing it doesn't feel positive. It feels like they're taking advantage of understanding human psychology, and they're not using that understanding to create an optimal game design, but actually to create a game that will trap me, if that makes sense. Now, I'm saying this because I have a sour taste in my mouth right now, where it's like, I don't want to play anymore. I've enjoyed the game. Do not think that I've not enjoyed the Viking themes and everything the game has. I just don't want to play anymore. But I feel like I haven't finished the game, and I want to finish the game, even though I've finished the game already, at least the main story, which is what I'm after. And this whole thing, right, of wanting to keep me entrapped, to be able to not have me looking at other games and potentially losing my interest in the next Assassin's Creed game, and therefore willing to dilute the structure of what makes a good game design, is not just a problem of Ubisoft or RPGs. I think it's a greater problem that we're seeing in the game industry as a whole and other design industries. So, for example, Magic the Gathering. I was a very big fan of Magic. I'm still a fan, but I used to be one of those players that ate, slept, and breathed thinking about Magic from the game's standpoint. So I was always making standard decks. I really enjoy the rotations. I enjoy the challenge. I was always looking at it as a player, but I was also looking at it as a designer. I would consume game design content from them every single day. I still do consume from them, but it's not the same if you're not following the game. It's a lot of minutia. It's very complex, highly interesting, but very complex. Mark Rosewater, I think it's a highly underrated game designer, or designer in general. I think he has been one of the top 5, if not top 3 most influential designers in my life. But being that type of player, highly embedded in the world of Magic as a player and as a design consumer, and they lost me. Now, why did they lose me? They lost me because not of any other type of controversy that might come into the frame, but it was actually the dilution of the world of Magic. They started pressuring Wizards, which is the company that does and design Magic the Gathering, into trying to make more money. Or so the story goes, as it has been unveiled and discussed online and whatnot. Suits, MBAs, CEOs and whatnot, the leadership is pressuring the brand to make more money. How do they start making more money? Well, they start doing more expansions. That's not a problem. They start doing more worlds. They start doing more events. I'm okay with all of that. They start doing more custom cards that they can sell for a premium. I'm okay with that. When for me it crossed the line is when they started going into crossover worlds, right? So they start doing the Walking Dead cards and all these other franchises. The idea is to bring a different market, to use the crossover strategy, right, of having a character from another franchise in a Magic card to be the hook, to be the introduction for that group of people that would have never seen Magic if it's not for this franchise being included that they liked in Magic, and they're just trying to get more people. That's kind of like where I started seeing a direct correlation with the quality of Magic design or the experience of a Magic player, because now instead of looking after and taking care of Magic as a system, as a game design, they shifted their energy. They were forced to, the designers, these people that are taking their lives and pouring it into making this design better, they were forced to now start looking at other in other areas, right? It's not just now design, it's not just development, it's not making the best game that you can, and that has made a lot of money, that has fostered a strong fan base. That, I mean, I think the average Magic player plays Magic, I don't know, it's like 7 to 10 years, something like that. It's something absolutely incredible. And they're throwing that away to be able to catch new fish. But those new fishes are not necessarily fishes that are going to stay in the pond, right? It's not players are going to go deep down the rabbit hole and be loyal because of their interest to Magic. It's people that, hey, this is a cool, set of cards that have, Lord of the Rings on them, or, Borderlands. Let's play them for a night. So they bought the product they wouldn't have otherwise bought, but that's it. What has happened here is a shift from catering and developing the depth of the customer base that really loves and is really involved with Magic. They have now shifted for the quick, easy money, let's say, right? They're going for a wider base of customers instead of catering to a depth of customers. Here, I'm not trying to bash the designers, the developers. I'm not trying to talk down to the makers, those who have the ideas, are passionate about bringing them to life, developing them, catering, and offering them to people to experience them. The problem, I think, here is where when it comes to the managerial class, people that know business but don't know the craft, and they start forcing down directions and they start forcing down goals that do not really align with the sustainability and nourishment of the craft, whatever it is that you're doing, right? Right now, we're talking about game design. And I think that that's the disconnect. Now, this also happens, and you can see it very clearly in architecture. We can all tell architecture from, let's say, the Renaissance. Let's go high. The Renaissance, which is able to capture our imaginations as a human race, is able to just be inspiring and just leaves us with a feeling of awe. Contrast that with the current modern global style, where it is devoid of ornaments, it is devoid of careful, unique, custom designs. Right now, let's say you go to a city. There's some awesome modern designs out there. Like, I'm not bashing necessarily specific designers. I'm trying to look at this in a systematic way from 30, 40, 50,000 feet high. Even though there are very, very cool modern buildings, the experience of being in that type of modern city it doesn't feel the same as when you are in Barcelona or when you are in Rome. And there's something about the history of it that's certainly a part of it, but there's also the design, the amount of details that it has, and the time that it takes to make those details. It's just inconceivable in this era. Like, buildings were crafted out of stone. And I'm not saying that we need to go back to stone. That's not the point. It was the time that it took, that it was willing to be put in to craft a building out of stone, to the point where 150 years after, they're still standing. Compare that with the modern materials, with the modern construction techniques. Buildings in 20 years are falling apart. Also think about it this way. When you go into a modern building, everything is just an off-the-shelf product. There is no custom details of door handles, of hinges, of downspouts. When you go down to the city, there are no highly detailed, ornamented light posts. And again, I'm not talking about a particular style. The style could change, but it's also the quality, right? Everything looks like everything. Like, the style, the materials, the techniques that are being used in a modern United States city is the same materials and techniques that are being used in a modern European city. And the problem with that is that it takes the aspect of locality, so of space, of place, right? You don't feel like when you're in Rome, you feel like you're in Rome. By all the different cues in your environment, you can pick up and clearly you know that you're in Rome. You have a somewhat of a spatial environmental taste to it, right? That you can identify. You go to a modern building and the only thing that really changes is the configuration of it. Everything else, it's like you can identify all the pieces that are being put together in other buildings. Another example is if we go even down or closer to the details, is the joinery. This is kind of getting a little bit esoteric, but I think this is something that can be appreciated. Joinery, like for example, Japanese wooden construction joinery, that is an amazing technique that you're able to put a whole building together without any single screw, nail, or plate. It is a complete art, but it takes time. It is a craft and a knowledge base that has been lost, but it is a beautiful component and construction technique that just gives the architectural feeling a completely different taste. But that's being lost. And what we have right now is just what is quick, what is good enough that will just have the house holding, or that will hold the house or the building up for maybe 10 years. We don't care about after 10 or 20 years, right? As time keeps running, the time horizon for that criteria keeps getting smaller and smaller. Or speaking to, another example, like product design, we all see that, yes, there's a lot of products out there. There's a lot of just garbage, right? Is just like a whole bunch of plastic trinkets that are being mass produced with no real value to be added aside from taking $1 here and there out of my hand. There's a shift in focus has happened where makers are not in charge of the craft anymore. The idea of quality over quantity, right now is quantity over quality. But the idea of quality, where in terms of product design, a refrigerator was handed down via generations, right? At least one generation. And if you wanted to buy another refrigerator, it was because you wanted a different style, not because you were forced to. Well, let's say from a business standpoint, another angle to this problem that I've noticed is, as I am talking with clients, and we have makers, designers on one side, we have the client, the people with the capital, with the resources to be able to do the design. We're separate and we have different goals. The makers, the designers, are trying to provide and create the best possible design and quality that we can within the given time and the budget, so money. Clients, on the other side, they're in this to make money. Not saying anything about making money. Everybody has to make money to survive. There's nothing bad about making money. The problem is that there is a clash of visions here, or of goals, and one of them has to give. Usually clients, they are wanting to make a profit as fast as possible, and they have this pressure because of inflation. And I've heard this countless times from clients. We just need to get it out. We cannot move the deadline to get a better quality. Even though we would get a better quality, we understand that we just cannot move the deadline because of inflation, because we need to close the deal, because we need to make the profit before inflation catches us. So clients are running against a never tiring opponent, which is inflation. Designers, makers, they are trying to do the best they can. But quality does not come without time. And time, it seems, has become a luxury that we cannot afford anymore. That's why we have slowly but surely have seen a decline of the state of design in general, from everything from the game design world to architecture to product design. I'm not saying that there are no great designs out there. They are certainly out there, great designs with great quality, but there are very few compared to what used to happen before. Usually they're very, very, very expensive because they need time and they need resources. But the conflict here is, why has the state of design correlated, in my opinion, with inflation? The problem of inflation, let's talk a little bit about that, because I think what we've been talking about so far has been the symptoms of the problem. I think inflation starts to guide us towards the actual problem. The problem, I think, right now, from what I can see, is the monetary system. It is the fiat system. Now, fiat means by decree. When you have a fiat money, it is paper money that is money because it is decreed by the government that it is money. It's not inherently or hasn't been chosen by the free market to be money, like, for example, gold or silver or whatever other medium of money has been chosen by a group of people. The problem with fiat money, or at least the centrally planned economy that we have right now, even in the US, is that in its design, there is a inflationary component. You have a monetary system that has, by a key feature, inflation by 2-3%, whatever the arbitrary target is. This is understood by modern economy that it is needed so people will not hoard their money. If you hold it, like in US dollars, and you're not investing in assets, that will depreciate. It will buy you less over time, even though you worked for it. Now, what is the problem with that? This creates a necessity of, you have to work to gain that money. You traded your time, your skills, to have a free exchange with someone, that service of product that you're given for their money, so you can then use that money in the future for whatever you need. This is the bedrock of civilization. Like, if we don't have money as a system, as a tool, civilization just doesn't happen. The problem with a money that has inflation is that now you have to take into account, how do I manage the money that I have gained that you already worked for, so it doesn't lose the purchasing power that I worked for in the future. So now you kind of have to work to gain the money, and now you have to work to maintain the purchasing power of that money. What this does for a designer, now you are not able to fully focus on your design, on your craft. You now have to allocate some of that focus into, how do I maintain my purchasing power? Now, that is just, it's just a breaking down of your limited time. So what we have done is that we have given the money, right, to other people to handle, like, your 401ks and your investments. A lot of, like, the financial or financialized layer comes into play. That is where the intricacies of the economy or unnecessary complexities, in my opinion, start happening. Because now, let's put this very, very simple. If I'm a game designer, I'm an indie game developer, and I just want to focus on making the best game. I made a game, an indie breakout game. It brought me, I don't know, let's say $200,000, and that's like a lot of money. But now you sit down, you have $200,000, and now you have to think about, wait, how do I manage all this money? Because I can't just put it on a bank. I can't put it under my pillow or under my bed, or bury it back in my backyard, because in 10 years it loses purchasing power. So now you have to dedicate time to learning how to invest. So that designer is not using their time to make the next big game that they can do. So that's a point. The other point is that because of all this inflationary, the whole financialized layer has to come over the makers to be able to run a studio, a game, or architecture, or graphics, whatever, a maker space. Because makers need to focus on making, but the economy is still running. It is still siphoning out your purchasing power if you're not keeping up with it, if you're not looking on what to invest. Second order of effects that has is that now because money talks, right? You know, no one's going to work for you if you can't pay them. You can't buy resources to make if you can't pay for them. This kind of gives the reins unwillingly and in a almost insidious way to a managerial class, and that's where the disconnects happen, because this you know, the MBAs, the economists are looking at the economy. They're not looking at making a better game. Priority is not the design. And there's a great concept, or at least the way that it's explored in the book, The Unsettling of America, by Wendell Berry. Now, what he talks about is the capital stock and the capital flow. The idea is that the stock of the capital is that which produces a flow. Let's go with his example. So farmland, the actual land where you plant on, is the stock. What is produced on the land is the flow. What used to happen is that the farmer owned the farm land. So, and their whole family and survival depended on the flow that they could have from that land. So every year they would take out crops and go and sell them and take money to survive for the next year. But they would also be very, very careful about not exploiting the land to the point where it would not be fruitful in the upcoming years. So there was a very, very careful balance between using the land and taking care of the land. And usually the land would also be handed down as heritage to the family. So the farmers were not just looking at a time horizon that was now. They were looking at a longer time horizon. But in the recent modern years phenomena that has happened is that the farmers don't own the land anymore. They rent the rights to farm land. So what are the implications of that? Farmers don't care about taking care of the land anymore. They just care about exploiting, extracting as much value from that land as they are able to increase their flow by not caring if they sacrifice the stock. And I think this is unfortunate. And I also think that it reflects a lot about the reality of our food system and whatnot. But I also think that it reflects almost perfectly what is happening, or at least what I'm perceiving that happens in the design world, where we are not caring about a franchise. For example, if it's game design, we're not caring about a fan base, it would be the equivalent of the stock. If we're able to do some changes and we are able to just quickly sell and get that flow cash, get that money for the next 2 or 3 years, but we're burning the stock. Then the same thing is happening with architecture. Same thing is happening with product design. It's happening everywhere. And then there's another notion that before economic capital, there is cultural capital. And this is a concept that comes from the book Bitcoin is Venice. And in there, the authors are explaining and exploring the point where it does not matter if you have good economic capital, like a farmland. If you do not have a good cultural capital, the farmer taking care of the stock of the farmland, it will all collapse. So cultural capital actually comes before economic capital in a sense. At least the concept is that, right? The idea also of the cultural capital is doing something that is not inherently for a fast extraction of value. A lot of great works of the Renaissance, for example, was out of people that had a lot of money, right? Bankers, for example, if we use Venice and the Medicis, a lot of their contributions were just buildings and art patronage, that they're not taking anything directly out of it. They're not the masters, or they can't just sell the painting that someone did that they paid or granted them the money to do, but it's there. It's part of now the the culture that they're building, right? It's, of course, their name was tagged to it, but that just helps to create a culture where the capital can now be an economic capital, right? So concept is very interesting, in my opinion, is very reflective of what is happening today. Now, we've talked about these symptoms, just examples of things that I've noticed in my experiences. We've talked about what could be the most probable cause, in my opinion. So now let's dive a little bit deeper into what would be a potential solution. What we've been talking so far has been the relationship between time to make, time to design, to develop, time to create versus money, the blood life of a civilization, of a person's survivalship in a society. I think this layer of money in our civilization, because of inflation, is not just about not having enough for groceries. It's not just about making the next car or house payment. It's just not about living paycheck to paycheck. There's this whole thing about inflation, about having the psychological notion, even if it's subtle and it's unperceived, that does not mean it does not affect. But the notion that what you honestly work for is being slowly and secretly, unperceivably siphoned has repercussions, has moral repercussions, but it also has actual psychological repercussions, because you feel frustrated. You feel like you're running in the same place. You feel like you're doing your part, but you're not really getting your part. This whole idea of what was different from, for example, the Renaissance or the Industrial Revolution, or all of these moments in history where human creativity just exploded. Human design took a leap into the future. It's not necessarily the only thing. It is by no means a state of or a fact. It's an observation on my part, is that all of these were related to a sound money, or at least a better money. These two particular times of history that I've mentioned were close to, if not directly overlapping, with a gold standard of some sort. Now, gold standard isn't perfect. That's why we ended up with a paper system money, fiat money, that was first backed by gold, but then the ties were cut and we are where we are. The idea that the greatest moments that we have documented of creation, of technology, of industry, of human development happen with a sound monetary system, it's easily correlated at minimum. If we're being optimal about it, it is one of the key components for it happening again. And Bitcoin is trying to create, it is ushering in an era very similar and, in my opinion, better than the gold standard, because a whole bunch of characteristics that it holds. It is decentralized money, uncensorable, peer-to-peer, digital for a digital era, open source. And the most important thing, at least for this conversation, is that it is limited. It has a limited supply. It is non-inflationary. This means that it is deflationary. Let's just focus on the idea of a sound money standard, very close to what the gold standard was, where someone could focus on their craft, get the money, not have to look as to how to invest it. You just need to look how to protect it, and you can keep getting better at your craft. If you get better at your craft, you are able to charge more. And now you can truly save. And no one is really taking that hard-earned value away from you. Now, what would the state of design look like if we had a sound money standard? In this case, a Bitcoin standard. I think a lot of free market pressures would start aligning with what we designers and makers want to be able to do, which is to have time and to get paid for the value that we create. For example, the idea of not having debt, in the sense that easily accessible debt, that I can go and get a $30,000, $40,000 loan for a car, go get the money, buy the car, and then have to work for it to pay the car, right? For the 5, 6, 7 years that you took the loan out for. What if instead you had to first work for the money that you had to pay? That would have a psychological implication that would be very different. For example, if you're able to get easy money via credit card, via a loan, you're more inclined to spend without really thinking, because you haven't incurred in the cost yet of acquiring whatever it is that you are buying. So you're not going to be as thorough. You're not going to be as looking out for higher quality, like the best bang for your buck. You're going to be a little bit more loose, some more than others. Now, if you have to work for your money first and then go and buy it, you already incurred in the cost of the money. So now you have a higher standard to letting go of that money for whatever product it is. If I have a car for $30,000 and half of its parts are plastic, and I have a car for $30,000 that, let's say, it has no plastic parts, right? And in this case, I'm trying to make the example that plastic is less durable than, the steel and other material components that are used in the car. So what car, if I'm really looking for my value, what car am I really going to buy? The one that is cheaper to make for the company and that would probably break down fairly quickly, maybe in less than 10 years, or the one that has a higher probability because of its quality of design of just lasting longer. I think everybody could say that it's going to be the better quality, especially if you had to work for your money first. Now expand that with everything and try to understand, or at least imagine, the market influences or the dynamics that starts generating. Now it's not just that the next person, right? If we're on a Bitcoin standard, right? Everyone is buying with Bitcoin, a sound money standard. Everybody wants your money. So now they're going to be looking at what you're buying. If they say, hey, they're not buying our car because it's half plastic, versus what other people are buying from our market research is like they prefer a car that has no plastic because it's a better value. Then they start doing cars with no plastic in it. When you have two products of the same value, the same quality, what happens now? What is the edge over each other as a competition? Well, of course, there's styles, right? Colors and aesthetic appeal. But in reality, you have now pricing competition. So it's like, I'm going to get you the same quality of car for 5% less, 2% less, whatever. But now there's a competition where you are able to buy more with the money that you have earned. And all of this to say, as a designer, because again, as a designer, we care deeply about the economy, because the economy is what permits our clients to ask us to build things. It is what guides our clients to generate the timeline and the budget for the project, for the design. It also permits us designers to be able to make the things that we like, the way that we like, spending the time that we want to generate the quality that we want to for them. I'm going to leave it there. I think a video has been long enough. Didn't really touch upon everything that I wanted to, but I think at least the basic idea, notion has been put out there. I know this is a different type of video. As I said at the start, it has been inspired to be done from an emotional reaction that I had to a game, which kind of spurs all the arguments in this particular structure. By no means am I saying this is the way. I do think it is the way, or at least a potential way that I'm going down the rabbit hole to keep exploring, because so far it has convinced me, trying to understand it better. And I just have this gut feeling reaction as a designer to Bitcoin that it really will open the door for us makers, for the designers, to really uplift just the general state of design. Again, just thoughts. I would love to hear your opinions, your reactions, your experiences, other possible problems that I might be missing that are correlated with what I'm saying, or other possible solutions. By no means, again, is this a fact. I'm not stating it. I am sharing my argument and my perspective on it. So if you like this type of video, Really do please let me know in the comments section below. And like the video, please. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm as I'm trying to grow this channel. I'm very close to 1,000 subscribers. I think we're like 120 subscribers away to getting to 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, you like my content, please do subscribe to not miss any of my upcoming videos. It's a really big help if you share the link with someone that you think might find this interesting. With that said, I will see you in the next video.